Welcome into Arbella Early Edition. As you know, the Celtics have had multiple players take part in protests around the country. Jaylen Brown joined in Atlanta, while Marcus Smart, Ennis Cantor, and Vince Poirier joined here in Boston. Brad Stevens addressed the media today, and he talked about what it meant to have his players taking part in this process.
Obviously, what's happened has been appalling and been brutal and been hurtful and painful. And, I'm really, I've said this many times, I think the NBA is amazing. And I think our players are amazing. And we're lucky that we have such great people representing us with the Celtics. It's just, I can't say enough good things. I wrote a letter to our guys this weekend. It took me a while to put down exactly what I wanted to say, but I think the thing that I wanted them to know is that, every decent person is hurting. Every decent person feels the pain of the African-American community.
Okay, Trent's off tonight. We got Drapes here, Sherrod, and also Cedric Maxwell is joining us. Max, this is the first time we got a chance to talk to you. What do you feel, or how do you feel about Celtic players stepping up and being at the forefront of this?
I absolutely loved it. It was fascinating to see. Jaylen Brown, I love what he did to drive 15 hours going to Atlanta. The only thing that disappointed me about Jaylen Brown was the fact that he did not have a mask on. And if you're going to lead, you got to lead on every aspect. I have just marveled at that, the fact that you'd have our players or like my family, my kids are doing something that's so positive that they don't have to do. And they're showing the fact that they're connected to this community. And that to me is just, that's what it's supposed to be about. Players during my era, we weren't connected like that. And now that these guys live in a city, they live and breathe and do the same thing the city does.
All right, I got a question for both Sherrod and Drapes here. Sherrod, I'll start with you. Okay, I was not surprised to see Jaylen Brown do what he did, quite honestly. I mean, we know this guy, after basketball, sky's the limit for him. We all know that. Marcus Smart, I was not surprised. Do you think there'll be other Celtics coming forward?
I think we'll see that. I think we'll see Jason Tatum be a little bit more outspoken. I think Kemba Walker we'll hear from him a little bit more. But you know what? The thing that jumps out to me about the Celtics isn't so much the players who are stepping up, but those around them, the Brad Stevens of the world. On his call with the reporters earlier, the one thing he talked about that really kind of resonated with me were the conversations that he was having with other white coaches in the NBA. And he talked about how they can't just be, just have empathy for the players, their black players and the black coaches and the assistants. They have to be part of what drives change throughout this time. And I thought that was really important for him to acknowledge that they just can't be on the sideline saying, we feel so bad for you guys. Oh, so sorry. No, you have to be part of the process that brings about change. And I think the simple acknowledgement of that being their role, that to me is the beginning of, I think, things turning around. Because, when you look back at the civil rights movement back in the 50s and 60s, as much as Dr. Martin Luther King was at the forefront of that, there are a lot of white people that helped elevate that platform to another level. And I think if we're going to get the kind of systemic change that we're talking about, that has to happen among the NBA family as well.
Yeah. And Drake's Red Auerbach, right? Red Auerbach did it for Bill Russell so many years ago. It still has to happen today. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. And I think what's important to note is, it's the organization, it's the entire NBA. When you have the backing of the entire National Basketball Association, you're more comfortable putting yourself out there. You look at football and how many players kneeled and how many players, got backlash for that. You don't see that necessarily in the NBA. The commissioner backs you up publicly, your owner backs you up, your head coach backs you up. And so I think that'll empower more players to do this, Gary.
Max, do you want other athletes stepping up? I mean, how did you feel that Michael Jordan finally said something? I know Jordan, he's been criticized a lot as just selling sneakers and not taking a stand. Was it too little, too late for Mike? And who else do you want to see step up?
Well, I got a train of thought is really different about that with Michael Jordan. During this pandemic, Georgia opened up, and there was a shoe store that dropped Jordan shoes during that time. And it showed all these kids with no mask on. Did Nike need that kind of publicity? Did Jordan need that kind of publicity? I don't like it. Now, this is what makes me say now, and I'm changing my tune. And this is going to be ugly. But what I'm going to say, LeBron James is the GOAT now. And what I mean, he's the GOAT because not only on the basketball side, but social issues. He's been involved in every social issue that we look at. You know, when he hits a line, somebody says, shut up and dribble. LeBron James has put his money where his mouth is, and that to me resonates. And that's why I think more of our players and more NBA people need to step up and find that same courage.
Yeah, I think more players have more control now, Max, than they've ever had before. You talk about LeBron James. LeBron James knows he's an international brand. He understands the weight that his voice carries. I don't know if Jordan fully accepted that or understood that. I don't know if he was fearful or selfish at the time when he was coming back. But Jordan had the opportunity to do that. Can you imagine Michael Jordan at his height making a political statement or a social statement and the kind of weight that would carry? Maybe Jordan was just selfish. Maybe now he's seeing the error of his ways back then. But, Max, I agree with you. LeBron James, you know, we talk about GOAT on the court. You know, I'm more impressed by what these guys are doing off the floor.
Sherrod, is there some player that we don't know about? I mean, other than, you know, Jaylen Brown, is there some other individual, like Popovich came out, extremely powerful? Steve Kerr has been extremely powerful. Is there somebody else that you see out there that you want to see come forward?
Well, you know, LeBron James has been at the forefront, but I think, frankly, I think the folks who are coming out to the forefront now are the folks that should be there because they have a comfort level knowing that there will be some pushback on what they're saying. They don't care. This means that much to them. And yes, it's great that you've got the backing of the NBA and certainly some of the organizations. But we all know that there's a segment of the NBA fan base that does not like these conversations. Because as I've said before, this conversation, in order for us to make the kind of progress we need to make, has to become a situation where folks become comfortable with being uncomfortable. We're not there yet, but I do like the fact that we're training in that direction, and it's not going to just be, you know, blacks leading the way or whites leading the way or the NBA. It has to be a collective, collaborative effort. But again, it begins with establishing a comfort level with having those uncomfortable, straight, no chaser type conversations.
Wait a minute, but let me say this. Let me say this. NBA players right now are independent of financial that hold that we had back there in the 80s or the 70s. They are independent conglomerates. So they don't have to really face the noise like people did back in the day. And that's what I say about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is an international brand. It has always been an international brand. So there's no excuse when you think about guys stepping up to the forefront and doing what they need to do now. I just think collectively as a unit, the NBA has led. It has led from the beginning of the pandemic, especially when we talk about sports, of stopping it. And then it will lead again when it starts talking about going back. And that is what makes the NBA, to me, I think, that the bigger sports event or community out there.
Well, you know, the commissioner, the NBA commissioner hit it out of the park. I mean, he's making the other three guys look like a bunch of jokers. I mean, it starts with him. You have to have the leadership, and I think the NBA has that. Max, you've been here since what, 78, 79, I think? Yeah. Just tell us your thoughts about what you're seeing in Boston and what we have to do to move forward.
Well, it's just, to me, I think that what we have to do in Boston is going to be a step forward. And I've talked to the ownership of the Celtics about this. I've looked around the league, Boston. I've talked over and over. Boston has to have more minorities in different positions. How can there be 4 sports and there be only 2 analysts or 1.5 analysts? I've been here 25 years. I've only had maybe 1 or 2 other people that I could look at that were of color that did what I did. So we can't be that. And even with the Boston Celtics, I've talked to a couple of the owners, and I said there has to be more representation, especially in the front office. You know, you have your players, but the Celtics don't have any. When they talked about Red Auerbach and they wanted to go in this whole thing and say, Red Auerbach, what we're going to do with you right now, Black History Month, we're going to talk about you. and a bunch of people got mad. Well, who did they come to? They came to me and started talking about it. I shouldn't be the voice of the Boston Celtics when it comes down to that. There should be somebody in their front office that is going to lead by example and start talking about those things when those issues come up.
Well, Max, you make a very good point. I mean, the Red Sox with their broadcast team, they haven't done it. The Patriots, they haven't done it. They have television opportunities in the preseason. You're absolutely right. We gotta wrap it up. Sherrod, Drapes, do you have a final word on this topic before we go to break?
No, I mean, other than just that, to Max's point, we have to continue to have dialogue to make change, and that, you just can't stand by the status quo.
And we need more minority decision makers in Boston, I think, Gary.
Well, Drapes, I'm going to tell you right now, you're absolutely right. And I know I'm going long here once, but I had a conversation on one of my Tanguay Takes America tours with a former New England Patriot player. And I said to him, yeah, but Boston's a really liberal town. He said, look around. And we had that conversation. And you're absolutely right. Boston does not have the appropriate ratio of diversity when it comes to your leaders in all aspects. It's not like Atlanta. It's not like Chicago. It's not like New York. It's not like LA. We want to think it is, but it isn't.